Welcome to the show. It's Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers, and I'm joined by Vince D'Addario and Jesse Stiers tonight. This is an old school look as we do this because we've got Notre Dame men's basketball going on as we start this show. We're going to have Notre Dame women's basketball coming up tonight, so I'm going to have to be taking off here in a little while. So we are originating this show on YouTube only. And for anyone watching on YouTube, you obviously know that. It's really not that different for you. But we're going to be delayed and rebroadcast on the air on Sports Radio WSBT in South Bend afterwards. So for Jim Irizarry, this is Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.
Look at you.
You talked all over it there, Vince. Come on. What are you doing?
My bad.
That's all right. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm just trying to understand why Jesse's hat has backwards Dallas on it. It doesn't make sense to
Everyone
me.
needs to know that, sober or not, Vince could not pass a driving test because apparently you can't read backwards.
I can read it
upside down.
Well, why? That's the question. Your dad has a Dallas sweatshirt on. It says Dallas. I can read it. Why backwards? What's the point?
It's fashion. It's fashion.
To read backwards?
His name Ben DiNardo? Was that the guy's?
Danucci.
Dallas backup quarterback a few years back. He launched this brand where he spelled Dallas backwards, and
it's popular elsewhere. Vince is just being a grandpa right now.
It just seems silly.
Vince, do you have today off? Do you have the whole week off? What's break look like?
Hilarious. That is not the case. We are in school today and tomorrow, which means chaos is reigning both days.
That's going to say when break is imminent, kids there is reckless abandon. They do not give one single flying damn.
All of it. No S is given. All right. and from the adults too, which is part of the problem because they're
just like, we're out of here in 2 days. Do we really need to suspend him?
Correct. They're just allowing chaos, So
that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
So we just clean up the mess.
All right. Well, I felt like it was a pretty good weekend for just for the second straight week. Notre Dame won, the Chicago Bears won, the Dallas Cowboys won. It was a clean sweep for all of us right here, and we've got a ton of stuff that we're going to talk to, from the Notre Dame demolishing of Syracuse, the Kyngstonn Viliaumu-Asa unfortunate injury, Jeremiyah Love's big day and his Heisman pose, and a lot of other stuff in between. Let me just start you with this. Fill in the blank. The Cowboys losing at Philadelphia, the first game of the season back in September, then turning around and beating the Eagles 3 months later is blank.
I'll start this one. I'm going to go poetic because it felt like in the first game of the season, the Cowboys played better, but unfortunately lost that game. And it felt like for the most part of the game yesterday, the Cowboys just kept shooting themselves in the foot and overall played probably a worse game at the end of the day, but somehow, came out and won. So to me, it's just funny. The games that you feel like you probably should have won, you lose. And the game that you feel like you probably should have lost, you end up winning. So, but that's a good thing about the Cowboys and Eagles rivalries. I always feel like they split. It's very, very rare that the one team 2-0 sweeps throughout the regular season.
I mean, sounds like typical Cowboys to me. So I don't know that kind of schizophrenic, not really sure what you're going to get. I mean, they can look like a Super Bowl type team 1 week and then not so much the next. And sounds like they did their thing, got the dub. So good for them.
Okay, so a couple of things. I'll just give my quick 2 cents. The second largest lead the Philadelphia Eagles have ever blown. And I was sitting there at halftime as Jexy and I were texting, and it's like, do I even feel like watching the rest of this game? And then, hey, it actually became a game, and they won. All that said, neither one of you got the assignment. Neither one of you has the ability to read between the lines. I thought that the way that I spelled this out might make you think of something else, because to me,
I see where you're going with this.
It's almost like two teams can play a game at the beginning of the season, and then those same two teams can be different teams 3 months later. So
it's funny because I saw this question to lead off the show, and I was like, why does Vince really care about the Cowboys?
That was my thought the entire time. But that's okay. Now it makes perfect sense.
I was wondering if either one of you, again, would sort of like get the deeper.
I've been
meaning.
lazy this whole Monday,
Obviously,
so forgive me.
that's okay. I'm exhausted as well because like I hadn't had a drop of alcohol since Jesse's wedding, which has been like 7 weeks ago now at this point. I had a couple beverages yesterday during the game.
Uh-oh.
And then as a result, it felt like I got up to go to the bathroom 18 times last night. So I'm not very rested and I've got a late night tonight. Obviously, not that anyone's going to cry for me, but the idea of college football teams obviously playing twice a year. I mean, it's an all but foreign concept, but NFL teams play twice a year all the time. And, like division rivals do it every year in the regular season. And then, you've got other teams that play in the regular season. One team wins. They have a rematch in the postseason, and the other team wins. Just ask Josh Allen and Buffalo how they feel about playing Kansas City in both the regular season and the playoffs. But, again, this is my passive aggressive way of saying to Miami fans, I'm sorry your parents didn't love you enough. Like you beat Notre Dame on August 31st, but it is almost December 1st now. And the College Football Playoff Committee thinks that you're a different team now. And maybe even more importantly, they think Notre Dame is a completely different team now. And if watching this weekend and the last couple of weeks, when you saw how they also dismantled Pitt last week, didn't tell you that. I mean, that's what it is. Like you hate Notre Dame, Miami fans. That's great. Nothing's going to change that. But, the teams have changed over the last 3 months, and that's just the way it is. So keep yelling at the clouds. Like Vince is yelling at backwards hats because it's not going to get any better at this point.
It's all going to become a moot point when they lose to Pitt on Saturday. So,
whoa, Vince calling his shot.
Yeah, baby. Well, hey, there you go. Joey's with you.
Somebody's got to be. All right, let's get to specifics. Describe Notre Dame's 70-7 win over Syracuse in one word.
Embarrassing. I mean, that's where I'm at. Embarrassing.
I want to go dominance, but I feel like that's just that the 70-7 takes care of that. I'm going to put the one word as quick. And the reason why I say quick is because that game was over in the first 3 minutes. And it felt like I even texted you this during the game. It had to be one of the fastest home games ever. Like that game start to finish was like 3 hours. And I felt like that was also
didn't feel fast.
Quick. Yeah, because they just kept scoring. The clock was running, but they kept scoring.
It felt fast to me because there was one point where I was like, oh my gosh, we might actually be done in 3 hours flat in this thing. Like, yeah, now were there times where it lagged? Yes, but I was also sitting to VADD, Vince Attention Deficit Disorder. So, I mean, like that.
Was that Vince's first or second home game of the season?
I think that was second, wasn't it?
Second.
How far did you get and how many trips did you make for the food up in the press box?
I did not take much food because I had eaten lunch prior to coming to the game. So, because it was also my lovely wife's birthday. And so we got together and then I came to the game. So I didn't eat a bunch of food and I went out and I watched, some of the game from the balcony. It's something that Brian and I usually do. We like to watch outside, whatever. We're a little superstitious when it comes to that. So I left Sean 2 minutes before kickoff. When I got back, it was 35-0. Like that. Like it was that because I came back after the first quarter was over. Like it was ridiculous. That whole game was ridiculous. You're absolutely right, Jesse. It was over in 3 minutes. And we're talking 3 minutes of like actual time football on your watch, not football time, like actual time. Like that's how fast that game was just absolutely over. And there was nothing that Syracuse could do. I mean, it was like the defense was checked into the audio for the offense of Syracuse. They were reading Syracuse's mail. Like they could not do anything offensively in that game. They had like 140 yards of total offense going into that final drive of the game where they scored their touchdown.
Right. And Jeremiyah Love, for a second straight week in the fourth quarter, had more yards by himself than the opposing offense had. Joey describes this very well. It was an old school Tyson fight. I mean, that's
Ooh.
what it was. It was like back to the yard, and you're just like, you're 90 seconds or less. You are knocked out. It was destruction, is what it was. I've never seen anything like it. Because like it's one thing even for a team to start with a pick six, and like that's electric enough, or a block punt for a touchdown. That's electric enough. But then you get 2 pick sixes and the block punt. They both go for touchdowns. Obviously, it's 21-0, and then. The first time the best player, I guess, was it the first? Yeah, the second time the best player in college football touches the ball after the offense. No, it was the first time.
No, it was the first because they went play action on the first play.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they threw a pass, and then the second play, it was Jeremiyah Love. In any case, he goes for a 45-yard touchdown. And then, then all these people talking about, well, Syracuse started a walk-on and, all this stuff at quarterback. They started him because Ricky Collins, the LSU transfer, was that bad.
And he's benched for the rest of the year. It has nothing to do with the fact they were playing Notre Dame.
Right. And it wasn't like they had to start this guy. They chose to start this guy because Ricky Collins was that bad. The 2 interceptions and the 48% completion percentage he had against Miami. Miami, by the way, led 14-0 at halftime. Notre Dame led 35-0 at the end of the first quarter, as Vince was talking about, it against the same team 2 weeks later with a different quarterback. No matter how you spin it, whoever they were going to start at quarterback was bad. And Notre Dame just took him to the woodshed, and that was that. Total annihilation, start to finish.
Yeah, and the best part of the whole thing was it was 35-0 after the first quarter, and then 3 plays later it was 42-0. So
I was really hoping for that 42 in the first quarter.
It was just there was nothing Syracuse could do. There was just nothing they could do. And even Fran Brown was like,
do you respect Fran Brown for that situation? Because I mean, he was very upfront about wanting to play a lot of young guys and seeing what they were made of. I think he knew how the game was going to go. I obviously probably didn't expect it to that extent, but I mean, Vince, as a former coach, like it can't be fun sitting there and watching your team lose 70-0.
Listen, I've taken butt whoopings in the past. It's not fun. You just want to get out of there. You want a running clock. You want to do all the things to get out of there. And there's some things that Fran Brown is doing that I don't necessarily agree with, like having all freshman captains and doing some different things like that. It's like, I don't know if that's the right message to be sending to your veterans that are on the team, but
those are things that veterans are supposed to earn. Like,
right.
Just hand about and say, oh, who can lead now? Who the young guys can lead?
Those are some things we could talk about that I don't necessarily agree with, but he's trying literally anything at this point with the way the season has gone and, all of those different things. And he's building for the future. And I just don't like coaches that quote unquote build for the future and just get rid of their veterans essentially. And just like, oh, thanks for everything, fellas. We're going young now the rest of the way. There's ways to do that without doing it the way he's doing it. But at the same time, it doesn't matter who he played that was wearing orange and white on Saturday. Like Notre Dame, Syracuse was a faceless opponent for Notre Dame. Notre Dame
felt personal for Notre Dame.
Yeah, and it was personal not towards Syracuse, but just towards the rest of college football.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it just so happened that Syracuse was the bump in the road.
And I think that's good. We talked about the disrespect angle of, that for Notre Dame last week with all the stuff that happened with Pittsburgh. And I think that the fact that Notre Dame guys are hearing that and they're feeling that, they're not feeling pressure, it's ticking them off. Yes. And that's what you're seeing these last couple of weeks because, and we'll talk about the Pittsburgh game in a little bit, but Pitt just beat the team that was the number 1 team in the ACC. And look what Notre Dame did to them a week ago, so so it goes beyond just, well, Syracuse doesn't have this and they don't have that in terms of players or whatever. Look, that's the coach's choice, and Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman can only play the team that shows up out there on the field. It's not their responsibility to apologize for anything they do or don't do in the process of getting their win. And the game was over before the first quarter was ever over. They did get a lot of young guys in. Do you guys in these situations, do you buy or sell a running clock in the fourth quarter in college football blowouts? And if so, what does the threshold need to be?
Yeah, I buy a running clock. There's no reason to kind of, waste everyone's time out there. I still think you can get valuable film out there for some second, third string, fourth string, however, deep you want to go into your bench. But, at the end of the day, the timing aspect of it and the timeouts is really strictly for TV stuff, right? So I have no problem rolling the clock, getting this thing going. Where the threshold will be, that's a hard question because it's like where do you define it? Is like a 6 touchdown lead going in the fourth quarter, enough? Is a 5? Because then there's going to be someone who will say, well, anything can happen type situation. But it's like, I think if you're a 6 touchdown, lead going into the fourth quarter, there's really nothing the other team can do to come back.
So 42, like the margin's 42 for you?
Yeah. 40, maybe 40 or above.
Fourth quarter?
Yeah.
I was thinking 40 plus, 50 plus, like if it's 50, definitely 50 and you're in the fourth, at any point in the fourth quarter, you just keep that clock running.
High school's 35 at halftime. And I think that's a little too narrow for the college game because there's better athletes in college. You can score faster. You can do some different things. So I would be okay. Honestly, I would be okay with it at 35 at the fourth quarter. You know what I mean? Like that would be a fine number for me. You get an extra quarter than you do in high school before you get to the running clock. Obviously, it's never going to happen because of commercials and
but see, but that's the thing. By the time you get to the fourth quarter in that kind of situation, like, yeah, there are commercial breaks, but I mean, you might notice as you're watching a game, there are far fewer commercial breaks in the fourth quarter.
That's fair.
Unless
you still have the 2-minute warning,
and you can still obviously have timeouts after scores and stuff like that. And yeah, you do have the 2-minute warning, but you can it's basically how far you want to let it run. Media partners might have a problem with it, but let's face it, if a team is leading by 50 in the fourth quarter, how many people are watching anyway?
Right.
Fair. No,
and
that's fair.
And they all have ways where they can, like do the split screen kind of thing, like they're doing with like the red zone where you put in I think the NBA does it, where like you put up whatever ad on the screen for 15 seconds. Like you see baseball do it during some pitching changes and stuff like that, where you basically still have what's going on in the field. You just put some stuff up on the screen. But
I'm not going to lie to you guys.
TV is always going to mess with everything, but it feels like you need it. Go ahead, Jess.
I felt conflicted during the game because I was at a crossroad of when do I turn this off and watch USC and Oregon, because it was same time, same day. And the Notre Dame game was 42-0 after one.
Much closer game. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to see USC win, obviously. So like up until like halftime, maybe end of third quarter, I was very conflicted of switching back and forth to try to catch some of that USC game.
Where did it go? Okay, so the only bad thing that really came of Notre Dame Syracuse, 2 bad things. Chance Tucker is done for the season with an injury, and the bigger blow is Kyngstonn Viliaumu-Asa, who is also out for the season with a knee injury, which we found out yesterday. And Joe in the YouTube chat says, for anyone upset with the coaching staff for the KVA injury, what would you like them to do? Pull the starters in the first quarter. Do you have any problem with KVA still being on the field when the injury took place?
Zero problem, because it was the second quarter. Like if we're having this conversation in the middle of the third quarter, okay. But every starter was still in the game at that point. You keep the starters in. Like I've been a part of blowouts both directions, right? You keep your starters in until halftime, and a lot of times you keep them in until the first drive of the third quarter, and I don't have a problem with that.
Love, his last touchdown was at the
first
start
drive
of the
third
half.
quarter.
That's right. I was honestly shocked that he was still in the game, but they left the starters out there.
I have no problem with it
whatsoever. There is a certain, like, you're still, like, even though it's a blowout, it's not like you're just going to empty your bench in the first half. Like, there's still a certain amount of work that you want your starters to get out there. You don't just want them to basically play one quarter of exhibition and your offense to, your number one offense to play 3 series and you're out. So I have no problem with him still being out there.
Yeah, I have no problem with it either. I felt like halftime was probably going to be the cutoff regardless of the score. Like you guys were saying, you still want your starters to get looks in, to get reps in, to fulfill that week of preparement. And I think this kind of goes unspoken and across sports. Like, these starters have earned the right to essentially kind of stat pad a little bit, if you want to think about it, because like it's not every week that you get the opportunity like this when you're Jeremiyah Love or maybe Boubacar Traore or some of these wide receivers. Like, not every week is a week where you can get 100 yards and a touchdown or 2 sacks or whatever it might be. So, I feel like you earned your right to kind of run up the stats a little bit, get yours, and then the backups come in. So I really have no problem with it. Like if this were like the third or fourth quarter, then I think it's obviously a way different story.
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who are upset about this are basically just like you're going to be mad about anything and everything if you're going to find a reason to be mad at something like this because, as Tyler said, it was a non-contact injury. Like, the unfortunate thing is that's how most MCLs are. They're not even contact injuries. It's just something, very unfortunate that happens to a lot of different athletes. In terms of the impact, though, the impact of KVA being out now is blank.
Yeah, I'm not going to act like it's end of the world, but it's a huge loss at the end of the day. Just what they can do. He's just very versatile now at the linebacker position. He is an extraordinary, rusher, creating, pressure packages that include him. He's been really good at stuffing the run at the line of scrimmage. And then also he's gotten a lot better at recognizing coverage. Like, I think it was the 4th down play against USC where they go play action and he's covering the wide receiver out in the flat one-on-one. Like, those are the type of plays that he can make. He's really good in space. He's really good at, bringing pressure. But to kind of, bring not light to the situation, but a bright spot, Notre Dame is really deep at the linebacker position. And this is kind of, if you think about when KVA came on last season, it was around this time, end of the season, beginning of the playoffs, when you really started to see him have an impact. So for me, I would want to see someone like Freeman kind of step up and get into their moment like KVA had last season.
It's impactful. I mean, there's no doubt that it's impactful because he's the second best linebacker that they had. And having him and Drake Bowen on the field at the same time was it's the best combo linebacking core in the country. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're just that good. And so losing him is significant. Now, the linebacker room is loaded, just like the running back room is loaded. And so this is a, next man in kind of a situation. They're going to have to adjust the way they do their subs, and they're going to have to adjust kind of, who they have in when and whatever. Yes. But it's impactful. There's no doubt about it. It's impactful.
I think that's an important point, Vince. Just like the personnel rotations are going to change now. Like you think of basketball and how, you're starting 5 and then who's coming off the bench. Like, him going out is significant because now new guys are playing in new groups together, and they're going to have to gel and figure out kind of what that looks like.
And I think that for Ramo, because the way they've done it is obviously trying to capitalize and play to the strengths of each of these guys as much as possible. I think that Faramo still fits into, kind of the pass rush type stuff. The pass coverage is, I think probably the, like the biggest, kind of void that's going to have to be filled with KVA being out. But you also have a pretty good group of safeties. So maybe they come into play, like one of those safeties, whoever it happens to be.
I'm not saying that Notre Dame would do this, but be careful how much you put on a true freshman at this point.
Yeah.
That's all I would say.
And I don't think they would. Yeah.
Well, that's why you saw him play against Navy. The game plan is really simple against Navy. Tackle what's in front of you. I think his assignments, if he were to play, against, I think Stanford is a really big game for Madden, because I think you can throw him out there and get him a lot of experience in a game. Obviously, you need to win, but that would get him, ready for more postseason play. But if you bring him in the postseason, it can be like that. It can be designed pressures where you're just telling him to get to a spot on the field and not really worrying about him truly reading an offense and reacting type situation.
I'll just go ahead. Marcus Freeman talked about Madden Faramo today. Here's what he had to say.
He is a ascending player, right? And the more he's out there, the better he continues to play. He's preparing in a really positive way. I think the greatest thing King did for Madden was they hung out a lot. And so Madden learned how to prepare in a similar way that King did. But he's getting better. He's getting better at all facets of playing the linebacker position, and he's doing a really good job when we're asking him to do on special teams. And so his role will increase, as well as Kahanu Kia's and as well as some of those other guys that have been playing.
And that slipping Kia in there, I think is kind of interesting as well. We've seen little bits and pieces of Kahanu Kia, and he's played fairly well also. But again, I think that the coverage is the biggest thing that they're going to have to figure out with whoever is going to fill in for KVA in terms of the linebacker rotation.
Yeah. Yep. I would imagine that Osbury will probably get the bulk of those reps, and then we'll see kind of how they do it, because Jalen Sneed is not a coverage guy. At least he hasn't proven to be that. And so I would venture to say it'll probably go to Osbury, but somebody in the chat also made a great point. Every linebacker that Notre Dame has eligibility left. So
Correct.
Nobody's leaving. That's a good thing.
Correct. Tay Johnson, Tyler's asking about him. He is listed as out on the injury report.
Is he
this
out
week,
officially?
So we don't expect him to see him. By the way, again, I hate to just like address every, little critique and criticism or whatever, but there were a lot of people who were upset nobody asked about Freeman in the post-game press conference about KVA. Here's what the answer would have been. Here's generally what it would have been. Yeah, he hurt his knee. Not sure how bad. He'll get it checked. We'll have to see.
We'll let you know.
That's what the post-game response.
And why waste your question?
Exactly. And only 9 questions got asked of Marcus Freeman.
And you're only allowed one question and a follow-up usually. So why would you waste?
It's a lot more abbreviated, and there's a lot more game specific. You're just not going to get the response. And then, it's like, okay, you would have gotten that at the press conference. Sorry you had to wait probably less than 24 hours, but it was less than 24 hours before they officially announced it.
Oh,
so
you have no idea how many people came into the post-game show. What's going on with KVA? What's going on with We don't know.
Marcus Freeman, he doesn't even know the extent of the injury. You
can't get an MRI that fast.
He has to go get the MRI first, and a lot of times you go get the MRI. If there's swelling, you don't even have specific enough results. It's like you're not going to get the answers to that kind of stuff right away. Sorry.
Well, and you guys didn't have the benefit of watching on TV, but he was in street clothes instantly, and had a look on his face like he knew what the answer was. So,
and he probably did.
That's what I mean. There's a lot of reading between the lines, and I think a lot of times people ask questions because they don't want the worst case to be the worst case. But again, if you read between the lines, you could see it wasn't going to be good. So, like you said, what's an extra 18 hours until Freeman's press conference on Monday where he's going to have an answer?
Right. Did knowing yesterday change anything between yesterday and today? He's done for the season. When it's just people can't handle not knowing some of this stuff, and it's you got to wait sometimes. It's just how it is. Fill in the blank. Jeremiyah Love's day against Syracuse was blank.
Heisman-esque. I mean, you don't go 8 carries for 171 yards and average 21.4 yards a carry and score 3 touchdowns without turning some heads. There's a reason that his odds went from plus 3,000 on Friday to plus 500 yesterday.
They're down to plus 400 now too, Vince. I checked this morning.
There you go. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah.
With the bullet.
Telling you.
So I'm going to go Jeremiyah Love's day against Syracuse was an efficient masterclass.
I like it.
And the reason you have to say that is because with a guy that is trying to gain Heisman steam, yet your last 2 opponents are Syracuse and Stanford, how do you balance the weights as a head coach? How do you get him enough touches but don't have people screaming at you what happened with KVA?
Exactly.
But then how do you feed him enough stats to allow that momentum to keep going towards the Heisman path? I thought it was the perfect day. 8 carries, efficient, 2 touchdowns, 70 rushing yards. To me, it was a master class of getting him in and out, getting him what he needs, and then Notre Dame also taking care of business at the same time.
Very well said. Very efficient word usage. I went Superman-esque, since he's a comic book character now, like Jeremiah Star and all that. He was actually signing his copies of his comic book last week. And just imagine if he hadn't had a good day and people found out he was signing comic books last week, where that would have gone. But I mean, 8 carries for 171 yards. Those are wide receiver production numbers. That is not a human running back production type of day. And again, I have to say that it is just so entertaining to see Miami fans squirm about anything.
Well, have
and
you seen the
everything.
new latest, like, oh, he didn't do anything against us. How could he be a Heisman level running back? And it's like, okay, if you can't do the apples to apples comparison, the same argument holds true. It was the first game of the season. Just like Notre Dame, he's in a much different situation than a road game with all these new offensive pieces against Miami.
Derrick Henry didn't play the best team on Alabama's schedule every week when he won the Heisman Trophy for Alabama. You're like, he had an off game. And like that game is so specific because of everything that went into it with a first, like we talked about it at the start of the year, first time starting quarterback. They, were like heavy RPO stuff. And CJ Carr was making the right read in terms of the defender, like where the defender was. He should have been throwing, but, at the same time, it's like you've got Jeremiyah Love, and it just took them, too long to realize, look, we've just got to hand Jeremiyah Love the ball, and it just never panned out for Love in that game. So, like, did Miami's defense have some effect on it? Yeah, but Notre Dame's game plan also had a huge effect on both, that and how the game turned out. And to your, to what you're talking about, Jesse, yes, I have seen that, like the whole Miami aspect of this, because I don't know if you guys saw the tweet that I had last night, because you guys never interact with my tweets, but I tweeted about the rushing yards that a few teams have had against Syracuse this season. And then I juxtaposed it with the fact that Jeremiyah Love had more yards by himself than these other teams had against Syracuse. Like UConn had 142. SMU, a team that some people think is better than Notre Dame and also beat Miami, by the way. SMU had 76 rushing yards. Miami had 124. Pitt had 115. These are team rushing totals. Miami, 32 carries for 124 yards. SMU, 28 carries for 76 as a team. Jeremiyah Love, 8 carries for 171. Now, I didn't have the carries on there, and, people were letting me know about that. But what just has killed me is these Miami people ripping Syracuse for how bad they are and, doing what you're talking about, Jesse. And it's like, oh, well, what did he do against Miami? That's not what the tweet was about. The tweet was about the fact that Jeremiyah Love by himself had more rushing yards against like 6 different teams that I listed on there had as a team. That is the whole point. And if the fact that Miami just played that same team 2 weeks ago and had less rushing yards as a team than Jeremiyah Love had, that's part of my point that I was trying to make with the tweet.
Also part of your point, you brought up Derrick Henry and his Heisman season. He had 2 games that he was not super successful. And you want to know who those opponents were? Louisiana Monroe and Charleston Southern. He had 52 yards and 68 yards, respectively. So I guess we should take back the Heisman.
Right.
Take it back.
Because not every game was perfection for Derrick Henry.
Right.
Yes. Jeremiyah Love is a one-man wrecking crew, and by himself, he had more yards than all these other teams who played against Syracuse. That's
on 8 carries. It could have got a lot worse.
On 8 carries.
Yeah, like think if they had left him in for a couple more series and just handed him the ball. Like
they could have won that game 100-0.
Yeah, odds were if they handed him the ball 3 more times, he probably would have gotten close to 100 yards out of those 3 carries.
It's probably true.
Yeah, the way it was going.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the difference is Freeman respects Fran Brown, unlike last week. So he didn't do that.
Right. Exactly.
That exchange post-game was a completely different look.
Man.
You think?
I loved whoever. There's this tweet that had him side by side, and I was like, yeah, Marcus Freeman was not happy with that Narduzzi.
USMA says, saw draft prediction with Love going to Dallas. I've seen some of those. That would be fun.
You guys aren't going to be that lucky.
No, I know. It's all just like getting my hopes up again, just like we thought.
If there's one spot, though, that Dallas offense needs, it's a running back.
Oh, you're making me just like, okay. So Jeremiyah Love struck a Heisman pose after his 68-yard touchdown run, his last run of the day that capped his day against the Orange. He had a touchdown celebration a few weeks ago that Marcus Freeman used as one of his wise men plays to demonstrate what not to do. Like he, puts up these here's the wise thing to do. Here's the wise thing not to do, kind of thing. So I asked Freeman where the Heisman pose in falls in terms of the wise man permissibility.
It's to be. You put me on the spot. I always say celebrate with your teammates. You can never go. You won't end up on Wiseman if you maybe you will, but if you celebrate with your teammates. But you know what? He's earned the right to do that. All right. I don't like the other one you're referring to, but he's earned the right. He's earned the right to do that. So I'll let that one go.
All right. So he lets it go. You guys in or out on the Heisman pose?
Just like the pose that he struck against USC, I am in on the Heisman pose. At the end of the day, I think that both you are capable of doing when you display the level of dominance that Jeremiyah Love has. Would you want one to be a little bit more PG than the other? Sure, but you don't want a man to hit a pose. You stop him at the end of the day, and that's all I have to say. And when a guy is campaigning to win Heisman, justifiably so, over quarterbacks who I think are not playing quite near the level he is, you got to get in that picture-worthy moment or that video-worthy moment so that it gets circulated everywhere. Because now you see Jeremiyah Love doing the Heisman, and that's what everyone is thinking about.
You said that's all you were going to say, but then you said more. I just want to throw that out there.
In typical Jesse fashion.
I am 1,000% in. I said his performance was Heisman-esque. Look, this is 2025. You do have to campaign for yourself. And I have no problem with that because he did it in a manner that is absolutely respectful. It is in a manner of, I just did that, and so I'm going to do this. Like, I have no problem with that. Like, there's a reason that his Heisman odds are where they are.
Yeah.
Because he is the best player in college football. I'll say it. He's the best player in college football.
It's a movement.
The Heisman and Jeremiyah Love is real. This is real right now. I think a couple of weeks ago, and look, the Vegas odds said that maybe it was just a pipe dream at that point. But as you guys said, the odds went from, what was it, like
plus 3,000.
Plus 3,000 to plus 500 after the game, and it has gone from plus 500 to plus 400 over the course of the last 24 hours. This is a real thing, and Jeremiyah Love is officially a Heisman candidate, if not even the Heisman favorite at this point. Now, the only thing that might work against him is the other two guys who are the most talked about right now, Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin, are going to play each other in the Big Ten championship game after, Notre Dame plays Stanford this weekend. But Notre Dame made it real by putting, let me see if I can grab this here real quick. They put these Jeremiyah Love pipe cards on at all the seats in the press box the other day, and it rattles off, like a lot of his Vince has got one as well. We can both hold him up there. So, like that was it. And he started doing all these interviews last week, going on these different shows and stuff like that.
And they sent us an email with like a breakdown of the top players and their stats and all this other stuff. Like, they've never done that before. I want to throw that out there. I've never gotten an email like that before. And I've never gotten this sitting at my spot in the press box either.
Right. Well, we got a 33 trekking cap a few years
I didn't get a hat. What the heck are you talking about?
They're not giving the J Love, like Heisman movement a name, which I don't think they, and I realize Marcus Freeman was some of the, he's trying to walk that line between keeping everyone focused on the team goal, because he's always talked about with team glory, comes individual glory as well. And that's part of it, so like, I think some Notre Dame fans have sort of like almost kind of like been afraid of it and not wanted to talk about it because they thought that it was going to get too much and steer like away from, like the big thing, which is being in the college football playoff. But look, great players on great teams get Heisman Trophy recognition. Jeremiyah Love is the best player in the country right now. Like, anyone who wants to deny that are fooling themselves at this point. And he plays for a great team that is in contention to be back in the college football playoff this year. He deserves every accolade that is coming his way. anyone who watched that game, regardless of what you want to say about the Syracuse defense. Okay, say what you want about the Syracuse defense, but Pitt's defense was the number 3 rush defense in the nation. And look what Love did to them on, again, limited carries. So I don't want to hear any of what the competition is or is not supposed to be. Heisman's and Notre Dame used to go hand in hand, but it's been 38 years now since Tim Brown won his. So Jeremiyah Love is legit. He is in contention. He's going to be in New York City in a few weeks. And if everything goes right, he's going to win the Heisman Trophy. And I think that he absolutely deserves to win it.
And there's no Heisman Trophy candidate that you can mention that has somebody like Jadarian Price taking carries. You know what I mean? Not stealing them, but taking them, because he's a legit, number 1 back as well. You know what I mean? Like, Fernando Mendoza isn't coming off the field so that the second string quarterback can go in there and get some passes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, he gets to play the whole game.
He's still got a great player who, in Jadarian Price, obviously playing behind him, who, look what Price did on the second carry that he got. Like, he could legitimately be in the same kind of conversation if he was the main guy.
And if this was any other team, like Boise State last year, for example, right? That carry that Jadarian Price took to the end zone would have been Jeremiyah Love's carry. Like, he would have scored the touchdown on that play, and his stats would have been even more inflated. You know what I mean? So he comes off the field for extended periods of time for Jadarian Price, and he's still putting up these numbers.
Exactly. Swangdong says Miami fans disagree with me. I mean, I don't think Miami fans disagree with anything related to Notre Dame at all. So,
they love Notre Dame.
It's kind of a moot point. So, Justin Webb says he's not going to win it. It's going to go to a quarterback. It might, but honestly, I kind of think getting to New York City is a win for Jeremiyah Love. Again, like, based on the fact that the top, it was like 8 or 9 favorites for Heisman 2 weeks ago were all the quarterbacks, but it has narrowed down. Some of that has to do with the fact that Simpson and Alabama lost to Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago, and that tends to knock some of these guys out. But Notre Dame keeps winning, and a big part of the reason they keep winning is because of the production of Jeremiyah Love. Again, a quarterback might win it, but that doesn't mean that Jeremiyah Love is not actually the best player in the country, because the Heisman tends to go to the best quarterback on one of the best teams. That's just historically the way it is.
To me, the best way to sum this up is you have a group or a pool of quarterbacks where they're all kind of really good, and you can't determine at the end of the day who might be better than the other. When you look at the running back position, there is no question that Jeremiyah Love is the best running back in the country, and the most difference-making player in the country. There's not a person like Jeremiyah Love in college football where if he touches the ball, he could go one spin and completely house that thing. Mendoza can't do that. Sayan can't do that. There's a legit chance every time Jeremiyah Love touches the ball, you have to be afraid as a defense because he could run it 98 yards for a touchdown. And you were alluding earlier about, how it's against Syracuse, it's against Pitt. If that were the case, then why doesn't every opposing running back come in and do what Jeremiyah Love does to these defenses?
And that's my point of that tweet that I had, that Jeremiyah Love by himself, no matter what you want to say about Syracuse's defense, Love by himself still outproduced half the schedule that Syracuse has played this year from a rushing production standpoint. That seems fairly significant to me. I don't know. Call me crazy. Fill in the blank. Pittsburgh's 42-28 win over Georgia Tech means blank.
It means even more parity in the ACC. And parity is what Notre Dame needs in the ACC right now. They don't need the ACC getting a conference champion and an at-large bid and potentially, bid stealing or jumping over Notre Dame in some circumstance. So I love that Pittsburgh won because it makes Notre Dame look good. Obviously, Notre Dame just stomped Pittsburgh, and then Pittsburgh comes in and stomps Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech. Like, that game was so meaningful for Georgia Tech because had they won, they guaranteed their right to play for the ACC championship. And then if you win that game, we know that basically gets you a bid into the college football playoffs. So there was a lot on the line for Georgia Tech. And for Pittsburgh to come in and dominate like that, it just creates more parity in the ACC. And I think if you're Notre Dame, that's exactly what you want. And you want it led by Pitt.
I would say that it means that, the Notre Dame game didn't matter to Pitt, clearly, because they didn't even show up. No, I'm obviously being sarcastic there. Look, it shows me, number one, that Pitt actually is a pretty good football team because of the way that they played against Georgia Tech. I realize it was also a matchup nightmare for Georgia Tech, just in the way that Pitt plays the game. But Pitt's a good football team, and Notre Dame dismantled them. Like, it always comes back to Notre Dame for me, but like, Notre Dame dismantled Pitt, and then they played like this against Georgia Tech. It tells me a lot about where things are at. But you're right, Jesse. You want as much parity as you can get in the ACC.
No, and that's part of it, Vince, because, again, everyone wants to keep knocking who Notre Dame plays every week because it's like, oh, well, you beat the crap out of this team. Who cares? Or,
Right.
oh, whatever it. But look, Georgia Tech was the first place team in the ACC.
Yep.
And Pittsburgh was up 28-0 on them. And, like, even with a Pat Narduzzi, like, why are you calling that fake punt? I don't know. But Pittsburgh turned around the week after getting the socks knocked off by Notre Dame. They turn around and they do that to the first place team in the ACC. So,
the quarterback looked like a different dude. Like, he was a dude for 5 games. Notre Dame made him look very, very average and very much like a freshman. And then he goes out and does what he did against Georgia Tech.
That's what I said this last week. It looked like Chris Ash had Pittsburgh's offensive playbook. Like, they knew everything that was coming at him, and it was double so, obviously, against Syracuse. But like everyone was talking about Heinschel and how great Heinschel is.
Yeah.
And, like, they've won 5 in a row and they're ranked and all these different things. Notre Dame dismantles them, and then a week later they turn around and beat the first place team in the ACC. And now Pittsburgh is in the mix. If they beat Miami, I know they different
they go to the
things
ACC championship.
Yeah.
Is it like if they win, they're in? Because I know there are so many different.
They're in a solid second place right now and hold the tiebreaker, in my opinion. So, or to my knowledge, so if they win, I think all they got to do is win and they're in. And that would be if Pitt can beat Miami and then win the ACC championship. No Miami fan could say anything for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Because that is the perfect comparison of playing at the beginning of the season and playing now. Because obviously Miami did what they did in week 1. Notre Dame is playing a Pitt team in the last month of the season, and Miami's playing that same Pitt team in the last month of the season. And if Notre Dame can go out there and shellac them, and then Pitt turns around and beats Miami, it's just case closed, point proven. There's really not much else you can say.
I didn't quite say it, Brian. I stopped myself.
I thought you were. I thought you were. I was like, oh, man, that's where this is going.
I was like,
yeah, this is true.
Fill in the blank. Florida State announcing that Mike Norvell will remain head coach is blank.
Hilarious that they need to announce that coaches are coming back. We've had one from Wisconsin now, and we've got one from Florida State. That's not a good place for your program to be, that you have to announce that a coach is actually coming back. That's a huge problem. Huge problem.
Because everyone thinks he should be fired. If you have to announce that the guy that everyone thinks should be fired is coming back, and you're a program like Florida State, that's not a good look. So it's a complete surprise to me.
So the information we're getting is Pitt needs either SMU or Virginia to lose. That sounds right. They say if SMU and Virginia both win, they are in. But in any case, from like the Pittsburgh-Miami perspective, that obviously.
Regardless, a Pitt win against Miami knocks Miami out.
Exactly.
And that's really all I care about. I don't care about what Pitt does or doesn't do in the ACC championship.
Exactly. To me, like this Norvell thing, making this announcement, like you have to come out and announce that you're keeping your head coach. Obviously, there's buyout factors, and Florida State doesn't want to get into that. But it all but guarantees to me that Mike Norvell is probably done by the middle of October next year if they don't get off to a great start. Like he's going to be one of the first 5 coaches gone, I think, next year. And
it'll be mid-season, yeah.
The fact that you have to come out and make the public proclamation, and it's just like that's not what you want. Like you don't want to have to come out and say, yes, we're keeping our coach. Like it should be a given, as long as as long as you don't fire him, it should be a given that you're keeping your coach. You shouldn't have to come out and issue like this massive, 800-word statement about why you're keeping your coach. So it just doesn't feel like the future is very bright for Mike Norvell, barring some kind of big start to next year. Okay, a couple of different things. Joey wants to know if anyone felt bad for Angeli. I mean, I felt bad that he's injured and he didn't get to play in any of that. But other than that, I
mean, look, he's probably sitting on the sidelines thinking to himself, thank God I'm not playing in this game, because it doesn't matter if Angeli was playing in that game. It might have been a little bit closer, but it still would have been a butt whooping.
It would not have been the homecoming that Steve Angeli would have wanted at Notre Dame Stadium by any means.
No.
I feel bad that he was injured. I think it was a good thing he got to travel and see a lot of his old teammates and fellow, graduating classmen. Like, he didn't have to travel. He obviously was never going to play, and it's not like he was providing anything strategically to Fran Brown in that game. So him being there, I think, is really cool. But yeah, I mean, if I'm injured and I'm in cold South Bend, the last thing I want to do is watch my team get beat 70-7. But at the end of the day, you're a grown man. You made that choice. You transferred, and unfortunately, you got injured. It just kind of the way the cookie crumbles
is what it is at this point.
I was looking forward to him playing, but I mean, as soon as he got, had the season-ending injury, and then their season just went downhill from there. Yeah.
I do think their season would look a little different.
It would. Yeah.
I think they'd be fighting for a bowl position.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah.
But I think that in general, they still athletically and physically would have been outmatched by Notre Dame on Saturday, regardless of who the quarterback was. Brian MY in the chat says, "How about that Hidalgo pull up for the win? Big one over USC Friday night."
That was a tight game I was following.
My goodness. And 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, it looked like it was just going to go the other way, and then Notre Dame put the clamps down defensively, and they needed it. They needed it badly, and they got it. They used their defense, turned it into offense, picked up a win over a ranked team, and now tonight they've got a not ranked team at 9:00 at Purcell. I'm curious to see what this crowd turnout looks like tonight. 9:00 tip-off.
I bet you'll get more fans than the men's got versus Bellarmine the other night. I watched that game for a little bit on TV, and Purcell looked empty.
I talked to Bob, our engineer. He was actually Bob Henning, our engineer. They hired him. USC's radio crew hired him to be their on-site producer for the game. I told him I felt like he was cheating on me a little bit there, but I was talking to him afterwards, and he was talking about that Bellarmine game, and he said that the crowd was very sparse for that Notre Dame men. Speaking of the Notre Dame men, came up short against Kansas today, 61-51, the final. This was where my worlds collided. I have been here for 25 years, and this is the first time. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm an alum of the University of Kansas. Jesse was born in Lawrence, Kansas, about 5 minutes from campus. 71-61. I think I said 61-51. 71.
This is a 10-point loss. Yeah.
KU won. So for the first time ever, KU and Notre Dame played on the men's hardwood since, not ever, but since I've been here anyway. And it was a little bit weird watching it today, but I don't know. I don't have a great feeling about watching either of those teams. I do feel like Notre Dame is at least a little bit better than last year. They hung in with a decent Kansas team. I'm not sure that Kansas is any better than last year's team that, got to the tournament but didn't do anything when it was all said and done. So I don't know. I don't have a great takeaway from this game. Flory Badunga was just eating inside until Notre Dame doubled him in the first half. But I don't know. I don't know if either one of you got to watch any of it before we started the show today.
I didn't get to watch any of it. I was getting the score updates on my phone. I saw Notre Dame kind of jumped out to an early lead, and then once KU kind of overtook them, it looked like they never kind of looked back and really just kind of, cruised off with the rest of the game. I think it's disappointing. You lost a really close game to Ohio State that I thought they probably should have won, and then losing to Kansas. It's like they're just doing the typical beat who you're supposed to, lose to who you're supposed to, and it's just I feel kind of not guilty is not the word, but I'm a bit upset because I thought Micah Shrewsbury would have things maybe looking a little bit more positive by this time, and I don't know how Notre Dame men's can just really separate themselves as of right now because he's recruiting a lot better.
Yeah, he is. But I guess the big answer will be once they get into ACC play. Like I've said, I think if they can go 500 in the ACC, they'll be okay. But that's going to be a big if right now.
Vince sounds really excited to watch said ACC play.
I mean, the ACC isn't exactly the ACC of old, though, either. So, if they can, what they need to do first is they need to be able to defend their home floor. They've been terrible at that the last couple of years.
Yeah,
and so they need to
lost
be able
a
to
lot
do
of
that.
close games.
Yes, 100%. So they need to be able to do that first, and then we'll see what they do on the road in the ACC.
It's a good point because with Bray, it felt like they would always win most home games, and if they were losing, they were very close home games to ranked teams.
They protected the home floor back then. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Exactly. All right, well, that's going to do it. Quick show tonight. Appreciate you being here again. All this basketball action that we've got. So we'll be back on the air tomorrow. We'll find plenty of magic to talk about on tomorrow's show. Vince, Jesse, enjoyed the 3-man crew.
Thank you.
I was trying to make that legible for Vince.
I appreciate that, because I read left to right like normal human beings in America. So,
all right, that's it. We're out. Have a great night. We will talk to you tomorrow. Oh, I guess I should mention before we go, the game day show is this week from 6 to 9:30. And it'll be, of course, in studio because it's a Notre Dame football road game. 6 to 9:30, the game day show, because of the 10:30 p.m. kickoff Saturday night. Scheduled guests, record-setting Notre Dame quarterback Jimmy Clausen, longtime NFL kicker John Carney, and consensus Notre Dame All-American linebacker Corey Minor. Big guest list for Saturday's Notre Dame-Stanford game. That is the game day show. 6 to 9:30 on Sports Radio WSBT, the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel as well. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.